Good evening, everyone. Today's topic is Victory Demands the Courage of Conviction. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Brahmachari. Jesus Christ said in the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 10, "Think not that I have come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. For I am come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's foes shall be they of his own household. He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And he that taketh not his cross and followeth after me is not worthy of me. He that findeth, that is to say, clingeth to, his life shall lose it. And he that loseth, or in other words, that gives up his life for my sake, shall find it." And now Swamiji's commentary. God tests the firmness of our faith. The sword described here is the sword of discrimination. The struggle Jesus describes is not a war against unknown enemies, but the struggle with our own attachment to all that is nearest and dearest to us, humanly speaking. Ultimately, it is a war against the ego itself, and against anything with which we surround ourselves to bolster the ego's fragile sense of security. When Yogananda, as a boy, fled to the Himalayas to embrace a life of solitary meditation, he was apprehended by his older brother Ananta and brought home again. At a certain point, before he would accept defeat, he whispered to his friend Amar, his companion on the flight, "Let us slip away when opportunity offers. We can go on foot to Rishikesh." But Amar, whose brother had accompanied Ananta, had turned pessimist, disclaiming any intention of continuing their adventure. Yogananda's memorable comment on Amar's refusal was, he was enjoying the familial warmth. The spiritual warrior rejects that familiar warmth. Rather, he claims the whole universe as his home. As the Bhagavad Gita puts it in the 14th chapter, unaffected by outward joys and sorrows, or by praise and blame, secure in his divine nature, regarding with equal gaze a clod of mud, a stone, a bar of gold, impartial toward all experiences, whether pleasant or unpleasant, firm-minded, untouched by either praise or blame, treating everyone alike, whether friend or foe, free from the delusion that in anything he does, he's the doer. Such a one has transcended nature's triune qualities. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. So, we think of Jesus meek and mild, and we think of him saying, if someone slaps this cheek, well, turn the other cheek. And then today we're hearing him say, I came not to bring peace, but a sword, and then I'm going to set father against son, or whatever the exact words are. And we wonder, well, now what is this all about? Isn't religion supposed to be teaching peace? And yes, religion does teach peace. True religions anyways, true spirituality that haven't become hardened into dogma and religions. And so we have to understand here what Christ was saying. And let's take it from the superficial level, that when one comes on the spiritual path, that his family will often turn him away from it. I have met many families, actually, who the entire family comes onto the spiritual path, and it's a beautiful thing, but that is rare. Normally one soul thinks, there must be something more to life, and I'm going to dedicate myself to finding that. And the rest of the family says, come on, give it up, just come back and do the normal things that we do and just be like everybody else. But something that Swami Kriyananda would say often is, when you take any sampling of average society anywhere, that most of the people are wrong most of the time. And if you think about that statement, most people are thinking that they're going to gain happiness from doing this particular activity or having this particular item in their lives. But it comes and then it goes, and there's happiness and then there's sadness. And he who has even a little bit of discrimination, and Swamiji said here that this sword that Christ was talking about was the sword of discrimination. If you have even a little bit of discrimination, you know that the things that the world offer aren't going to make you happy. And so you will have to turn against those who try to hold you back from your spiritual ideals. And it does take courage, it takes strength to stand up to that, rather than just going along with the crowd and doing what everybody else does. It takes strength to follow your own heart and what you know is true and right. It takes strength to find joy on the inside and then hold on to that joy. So, superficially, that we will have to stand up, whether it's our parents or our siblings or whatever in the family, we will have to stand up to them. You know, both Paramahansa Yogananda and Swami Kriyananda at some point had to very sternly say to their earthly fathers, and I'm paraphrasing because I'm taking this two people as one, but they both had to say that my guru gave me spiritual birth. You gave me physical birth, my guru gave me spiritual birth, and the spiritual birth is higher. And if you say anything against my guru, well, then the choice is clear in my mind. So I hope that it doesn't have to go that far. But both Swami Kriyananda and Paramahansa Yogananda were willing to take it that far if it needed to be. So, this is the superficial level. And then, you know what, one more point that I just want to make is you're going to have to disappoint your family or your close friends or whatever it is in some incarnation or another. That you may think, well, in this incarnation I will just go along and do what, the crowd does and just be like everybody else. Yeah, you can do it. And you have as many incarnations as you want. But in some incarnation you're going to have to say, I'm going to go on alone. And I'm going to seek God, even if nobody else does. Because in my heart I know this is the right direction. Now, to the more deep meaning of this, that there's really another wonderful parallel reference to the Bhagavad Gita here. And that is that Arjuna in the Gita says, I will not fight. How can I kill my kinsmen, my relatives? That these are all people that are very dear to me, that have raised me, that have taught me. I can't kill them. And you see, we have to understand that these are psychological traits. They're not so much our physical relatives, but they're things that are near and dear to us, as close as a relative. Let's say perhaps we've eaten chocolate every day. And it just becomes, we almost define ourselves as, I'm a chocolate eater. I eat a little chocolate every day. It makes me happy. Oh, it's no big deal. And it's true, it really is no big deal. But once we have millions of these little cords binding us, then suddenly we feel so trapped in life and we can't understand why. And it's because we've identified ourselves as being a chocolate eater, as that this chocolate makes us happy. And then when someone comes and says, well, why not give up the chocolate? We think, but I'm a chocolate eater. Chocolate makes me happy. How could I give up the chocolate? And our little ego has usurped, has taken over the throne. It's taken over the whole kingdom. If you've ever worked in an office or seen something where a very bad leader has taken over and everything is chaos, this is what has happened in our own self. That the ego has come in and said, I always do this, I always eat chocolate, I always wake up at this time, this is just who I am. And so the battle of Kurukshetra, or the sword of discrimination that Christ was telling us that we have to take up, is to cut each one of those chains, or even the little cords, the little thread of that little subtle thought, I'm a chocolate eater, or I'm lazy, or I'm whatever. I watch too much TV. All these little cords, we have to cut them and slice through with the sword of discrimination. Remember who we truly are, that we have to put the king back on the throne. And the king is not the ego. The ego is the soul identified with the body. When we think that I am this body, and it's very interesting, even language can reveal, is we could say, I am tired, right there, we're trapped. Or we could say, the body needs a little bit of rest. Yes, the physical body does need a little bit of rest every day, but do you see how just in that little subtle different way of speaking, a little subtle nuance in language, the ego can be bound and thinking that you are actually that physical body, or remembering that you're the soul. You have a body just like when you get in your vehicle or on your two-wheeler or in the bus, however you get to work. If that's a vehicle, you use it, then you park it off to the side. The same way you use this body for a while, then it gets parked off to the side. So we have to have that kind of discrimination. And now the point of this chapter is that we have to have the courage to get rid of every single one of those self-definitions. And you will know if you've done it, if you have the ability to withdraw from it all. Take a few days of seclusion. Turn off your phone. Tell your earthly family that, I'm just going to be alone for a few days. And see if you can withdraw from it all and realize that it's all just a dream and that these attachments that we have, they're actually pulling us down and not lifting us up. There's another Gita reference that I want to make here. And that says that Krishna is telling Arjuna that at the time of death, those who think of their ancestors go to their ancestors. Those who think of the demigods or the devas go to the devas, those who worship those. But those who think of me come to me. And so these attachments that we have with our families, it's good to test, to see at the end of whatever, a week or whatever, when you go into seclusion for a few days, can you break every single one of those chains, even the ones that are important? Perhaps you're a father and you have a son. Of course you're supposed to love your son. But it's almost in how do you love your son? And again, this sort of discrimination comes. Do you realize that really he's not your son? It's God's son. You just have a responsibility. Yes, it might be for 20, 30, however many years. Perhaps you both will live long, long lives together. But even that, relative to eternity, it's nothing. Next incarnation, he probably won't be your son. He'll be off with some other family. Swamiji would say that a mother weeps and weeps if her child dies. But her child could be born right next door. She probably wouldn't even recognize him, unless she was an advanced soul. Something to think about. So, the point there is, yes, love your children. Yes, love your mother, love your father. But remember really who's loving who. And it's God loving God. Remember who you truly are. That you're something so much more than this little physical body. So much more. But we have to realize that. And back, the point I was trying to make was, get away from it all. Sit in meditation. See how still you can become. That if you have lots of attachments, you will be very rajasic. And you will want to stand up and go and fulfill those desires and those attachments. But if you have no attachments, no desires, you can sit perfectly still for decades. If there's nothing for you really to do. And saints have that dual, I don't want to say conundrum, but it's a paradox that they live in. Because on one level, there's nothing to do. They don't have any desires to do anything. And yet, on the other hand, that they are in a body and they use that body to serve God in whatever way He wants and to do as much as He wants through it. And each saint, each human being has the ability or has a unique role to play in this drama. It's such a beautiful tapestry of all the different souls, all woven together lifetime after lifetime to create the most grand show that we all could ever imagine. You know, we are the actors and we're the audience, all simultaneously. It's such an interesting thing, but we take this show as so real, and when we take it as real, that's when we suffer, and that's when we feel so hurt. So it's good to withdraw from it all. Speaking of withdrawing from it all reminds me of something that Swami Kriyananda at night would say. Every night when you fall asleep, Build a mental bonfire. You can visualize a blue flame if you wish. And as you're falling asleep, as you start entering into that subconscious state, when you're thinking, oh, I have to do this tomorrow, or oh, I love this person so much, that you can take that item or even that person, because this is a blue healing flame. It's not like you're casting someone into a flame to be burned in eternal hell or something, but you can just give them back into the light of God, is what I'm trying to say, and release your attachment to them. So, Swami would often say this, and one lady came to him and said, I practiced your teaching that I was attached to my house, so every night I would visualize my house in this blue flame, and because of you, my house burned down. That I was visualizing every night my house in these flames, and then because of that visualization, it actually happened. And Swamiji said, I told you to burn the attachment, not the actual thing. And there's such subtle things on the spiritual path where, yes, our power of visualization can become very strong as we grow spiritually. And so we would need to pay attention to what we were doing. But even so, this is an interesting thing. Whoever that lady is, that even though her house burned down, I imagine that she grew spiritually from that. And that at the end of it all, that she would even be grateful for that. That sometimes God gives us very difficult tests. And whether we pass or fail the test, that we should be grateful for it. That we should see everything as coming from God for our own good. When we can learn to have that attitude, well, when we have it perfectly, we're really free. That we see that God is the one who's doing absolutely everything. One more point that I want to make on this every night when we go to sleep. Earlier I was saying in the Gita that at the time of death, that you obviously want to be thinking of Krishna. And what if you're a Buddhist? What if you love Christ more than you love Krishna? It's a consciousness. That you want to be manifesting and holding on to that highest consciousness as you leave your body. And if you can, then you'll be able to leave your body consciously. That might sound strange, but there's many, many human beings who have done that. Who have known that it's their time to go. They've said goodbye to all of their family. It's not as strange as it might sound. But anyways, every night you can practice for this final exam. And death is nothing to be afraid of, because it's just like, if you have some shirt that you really like and it gets torn or gets some terrible stain on it and it's time to get rid of it, that you think, oh, okay. It comes down to that attachment and cutting that attachment. But once we learn how to truly live, we don't need to live with all of these attachments. That we can have so many things in life, but if we feel they're not ours, we live in so much freedom. That I live with all the other monks, and right now we have 3 cars, and I drove someone somewhere, and oh, is this your car? No, it's not my car. That the monks that we have cars, we maintain them, we share them, but it's not mine. As soon as I thought, oh, this is my car, I'm cooked. I'm bound. I'm bound by ego, but even worse, even though I know those 2 words shouldn't go together, worse, but even worse than that is my heart is caught. That now there's a string. I can't see it, but it is there energetically and magnetically. There's a string coming from my heart to that car. I'm thinking, oh, how happy I am. I'm the owner of a vehicle. I can go anywhere I want. Look how beautiful my car is. But as soon as someday is going to happen to that car, it came and it will go. And it might go pleasantly, it might go not so pleasantly. But to me, it's all the same. I don't pray for someone to steal it or something bad to happen to it. I do my best to maintain when it's in my custody, but it's not mine. And if we can see all of life, the homes that we live in, all the relationships that we have with people, the job that we may have right now, it's just all temporary. It's just to teach us whatever lesson that we need to learn right now, so that our soul can learn the exact lessons that it needs to learn. And don't compare yourself to others. Everybody's learning different lessons down here. You know, when Swami Kriyananda met Ramaya Yogi, I think his name was, a great disciple of Ramana Maharshi, that this Yogi Ramaya told Swamiji, your outward position in life has absolutely nothing to do with your spiritual level of achievement or attainment. I heard that recently, a few days ago. A switch went off inside of me, because we look around and we see so much, okay, this guy's high in society, this guy's low in society, and well, that guy must be more spiritual, and we think we can put it all together in our mind and we really know what's going on. But we don't. The most lowly street sweeper might be dedicating every stroke to God, and every leaf that he's sweeping, he might be thinking, God, this is for you. Thank you for giving me this job so that I can feed this body, but you're the one who's doing this. And someone who might have a very high position in society, I mean, look at some of the politicians these days, that they might not be very spiritually evolved at all. And yet, until we really gain true vision, we don't know. And I brought all of this up so that you, wherever you are, right now, today, that you could be happy. You could be happy right now, learning whatever lessons you need to learn, and letting go of all attachments, and just living in that freedom. Another point that I'd like to make here is, and I'll give a very concrete example, that, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago, or 20 years ago, probably, the internet didn't really exist. And I don't like thinking how old I am, so I don't know how accurate those numbers are, but that's not the point. The point is, the internet these days, that it's a power, and that power is being used for good, to bring people who really want to know about spirituality, people who are really seeking light, and learning how to love God better, and learning all kinds of different spiritual techniques. The internet's really just bringing people from all over the world. Suddenly space is no longer a barrier. You can learn about anything, not even spiritual things, but sometimes just fun things using the internet. What a wonderful tool. And yet also there's another group of individuals, people with a lower consciousness, who are using this same tool to unite almost the darkness in the world, and using it as a force for hatred. And so, the point that's being made here is that there's always darkness and the light. And sometimes, in fact it says in the Gita, Krishna says that when darkness prevails, that I myself incarnate to bring back light to everyone. And that we are living in a time where the world is almost becoming polarized, and that the forces of darkness are becoming very strong, and the forces of light are becoming very strong. And so, these words of Christ, that he came not to bring peace, but to bring a sword, that when you look around, you start seeing that there is a lot of tension, and that lines are being drawn, and that sides are being taken. And this really is in a spiritual way that I'm talking. I'm not talking so much politically, and I don't follow these things very much. But all of this is to say that you have to choose. You have to say, which side do I choose? Do I choose the light, or do I choose the darkness? Do I choose to be selfless, or do I choose selfishness? And when we, the spiritual path, it's a battle, that we're picking up this sword, because it's not so easy, honestly, to just completely give up selfishness. The ego, he's a very tricky character, and he has all kinds of tricks to make us think, well, yes, but I need this for myself at least, and well, that guy, that's his problem. But the more we learn to slowly realize that as an ego, we don't exist. As a soul, we are eternal. And it's funny, people don't think about death because there's some part of us that feels, well, I'm eternal. But we think, well, this body's eternal. And unless you're Babaji, it's not yet. In time, these things will come too, even to you. But, so we have to learn to discriminate, and we have to fight. And so this fight isn't easy, but the point that I wanted to make is that we don't give up the ego all in one go. That we don't just, this super tremendous faith doesn't come that, okay, I'm one with God, I don't need anything, and that I'll just be perfectly content, not even drinking water and just meditating for 10 days in a row or something. We need to take small steps, and we need to grow our faith. That even people who are very courageous, well, sometimes you meet people who are courageous, but they're also just kind of stupid, and they just make very big risks, and sometimes those don't turn out so well. But people who are wisely courageous, that comes through experience, and it comes from many lifetimes, actually, of knowing what to choose, when to choose, how to stand up, when to stand up, why to stand up, what we're actually standing up against, this dark side that I've been talking about. And so we have to grow our own experience slowly. And slowly we need to learn how to have more faith. We need to learn how to exercise better discrimination. And we need to learn slowly how to trust more in God and less in ourselves. And that can begin by mentally having a dialogue with God, mentally asking God, what do you want me to do today? Or God, how should I approach this or that? And it seems like there's no way that we could ever keep our mind on God, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all the time, always constantly having this inner dialogue. And partly that is true. It would get tiring to mentally have a dialogue like that. But what ends up happening is you end up having a feeling that you're one with God, that God is very close to you. And in that feeling, you automatically know what to do. And in that feeling, you begin to feel either more connected or disconnected. And slowly you begin to remember that God is always there and that God is doing everything through you. And that feeling becomes very blissful. One of the final points that I want to make is that sometimes there's things on the spiritual path, when you look, they just seem overwhelming. It just seems like there's no way that I could ever achieve that level of whatever it is. But you can. That just one slow step at a time. And before you know it, the years will add up. That if you just keep meditating every day, that tremendous changes will come to you. And you'll look back and you'll think, who was that person? That it seems like it was almost someone you read about or a friend or something, that it wasn't you even at all. And you will learn that you can overcome absolutely anything. And that feeling then, that's where true courage is born. So just stick to your sadhana, that slowly do your daily meditation, slowly build discrimination, learn to know what is right and wrong in this world, and keep trying to do your understanding of what is right action. And then God can't fault you for better than that. I mean, how can you be better than you are right now? We will get there, we'll grow into these things. And so in that understanding, in that wisdom, that you can live in inner peace right now, because you're doing absolutely the best that you know how to do. And it's good. There's absolutely nothing to worry about when you have that consciousness. So live in that consciousness. Live in God, love God. There's no limit to how much you can love God. And then you'll live in infinite joy. It's been a joy, it's been a blessing, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Jemal.